Boston's very own. Welcome to the Need It podcast with Ulises Benitez. Welcome, bro. Welcome.
Thank you.
You like the little sound effect, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was wondering if that was you or where that was coming from.
No, that's a pre-recorded one. It's funny, I haven't even used that one this season, but you could put a bunch of shit on here. But how's everything, man?
Everything's going good, man. Everything's real good.
Good. So, it's always a pleasure having somebody new on the Need It podcast. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure that you guys subscribe, like, and comment. My editing skills have been a lot better. Shout out to my editor. He's been putting in work and just, trying to grow the channel, honestly, and still put out like positive stuff that'll help you guys. Today's episode is a very interesting one, something a little different. I told you guys season 2 I was going to bring different people on. And what I like about it also is that a lot of the people that I have on, there is a relationship aside from the podcast. Like, this is a client of mine, somebody that literally was here today to help me. Of course, I had to hook him up with a fresh cut as well. But we got Danny Barros in the building, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate your time, honestly, because, today you really came to help me out.
Yeah, of course, man. You always help me out. You keep me fresh.
Oh, yeah, keep them fresh. And then we were doing, like, some marketing stuff, like, for the online brands, and we're going to get a little bit into what he does. But just for those that don't really know about, like, what you're in, just kind of explain yourself, and then we'll get into, like, some backstories, of course. Those are always fun to hear about, and just kind of, like, what you do.
Yeah, so I own a company called Hitscope Music Group. It's an artist management company, a record label, a music publishing company, and production company in Los Angeles. And we're partnered with Sony Music.
Okay.
So we, release music for artists. We have about 16 artists that are signed to our label. We manage a handful of artists, and then, we do all the marketing and promotion related to those releases as well.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what you were helping me with outside the marketing side. So just kind of backtracking a little bit. So obviously you have a lot of artists on deck. Is that considered a lot for a label, 16?
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, no. It's considered kind of small. It's like we would be called boutique.
Okay.
Because when you look at like some take like Republic Records, for instance, they have about 100 artists.
Oh, wow. So,
but, we like to really focus on our artists and really kind of like, build their brand to the best of our ability.
Dope.
It's tough to do that when you have 100 artists.
Oh, yeah. I figured, I mean, I guess you can say it's like quality over quantity. A little bit about just like you helping them build past the music is pretty cool too, because that's like what you were helping me with out today, helping me set up like some Facebook stuff, which is super intricate. And then just like, eventually I want to get into the ad stuff. So I know a lot of people that have a business, that have an online business, is not really taking advantage of all the tools they have. So that's what we'll get into today. But I mean, I'm interested to see how you even got into, obviously the music field. Like, what was like your actual breakthrough moment and stuff. But let's just take it a little bit back, because I did say that I did mention you were from Boston. So just kind of take me through like your upbringing and, obviously like your family ties and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up about 40 minutes outside of Boston in a city called New Bedford. Mm-hmm. Grew up, it was a very like Portuguese and Cape Verdean area where I grew up. So a lot of, Portuguese people, Cape Verdean people, Puerto Rican people, very diverse city. And then as I got older, I moved up to Boston. I ended up living in Boston for the last like 12, 13 years that I was there.
Okay.
But yeah, family-wise, I had 2 older brothers. One I haven't seen or spoken to in about 20 years.
No way.
And then, I'm very tight with my oldest brother, Dave. Yeah, like it was a weird upbringing. I lost my dad at 14.
Wow.
To cancer. So it was kind of like
it's a crucial age for you.
Yeah, it was a really weird time, to lose a father figure. So, I kind of like from that point really kind of, and it's kind of how I got into music, right? Okay. So I was kind of like running around on the streets, just kind of, acting like an idiot.
I mean, do you think that like a lot of it had to do because maybe there wasn't like that figure to kind of tell or was it just like a time? Because I've heard that before where that happens and guys just kind of lose it at that time in their life.
Yeah, I think when you're that young, you don't necessarily fully process things or really understand them. So as a result of that, you kind of react with anger.
Right.
So because I was just kind of angry at the world and had like this chip on my shoulder, it's like, well, I'm just going to go act a fool.
Be reckless,
But, that's kind of how I got into the music scene. So the way I got in, once I turned 18, I was going to 21 plus clubs because all my friends were older.
Right.
And I was just not getting ID'd. So it ended up happening. A club owner comes up to me and he's like, hey, every time you're here, you bring like a ton of people with you.
You always have that with you?
Yeah. So he's like, how about I start paying you and I'll give you a free bottle every time you come here every week. So at 18.
That sounds like a lot, right?
Yeah. I was like, considering I'm not supposed to be here, this is a great deal.
Yeah,
like,
hell yeah. It's the best deal, really, because at the time, your only goal, really, at that age is to get a fucking bottle for the night.
Yeah.
You know
and just like get in.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That's funny.
And it's crazy because that ended up spiraling to like other club owners started calling me and they're like, hey, like I heard you're like doing really good over there. How about you come over here and we'll do the same thing?
Oh, shit.
So by the time I was 21, a friend of mine who was also named Danny, we started a company called the D Squared Entertainment Group. And it was crazy. At 21, I never thought like I would have a business, but we ended up becoming concert promoters. So we started like booking our own shows. And at one point we had 10 events per week.
Oh, wow.
And we were all over like Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Hampshire, Connecticut, New York.
Really kind of taking over that scene in that area, right?
Yeah,
Nice.
really taking over. And then, eventually I did that for several years. And then back in like 2013, I ended up getting out because Live Nation got really big and they started buying all the venues that
Dang.
we were doing shows at.
Shit. So it's almost like this bigger company came in and just kind of like took over.
Yeah, we couldn't, you can't compete with Live Nation.
Oh, yeah,
at that size. I thought I could. I like started asking like the owners like, well, how much are you selling this building for? And then when they would say the price, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't afford that.
Yeah. That's crazy. So was that really I know now you're in LA. So was that like the motive to like move out this way?
Sort of. So while I was doing that and like throwing all these shows and stuff, a lot of artists and like DJs would ask me, they'd be like, hey, like, I have these clubs that want to book me. You think like you could negotiate the deal with them and like stuff like that. So I kind of like fell into management like almost by accident.
Wow.
Like I didn't even realize like I was an artist manager until like 6 months in. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I am like managing artists.
Yeah.
So that kind of, I really like that side, managing artists and like just helping them build their careers.
Right.
So I was like, if I'm going to do this for real, because I wanted to get out of promotion anyway, because that's a really tough business.
Yeah.
You can make 50 grand one day and then lose 100 grand the next. Like it's a really risky business. So I said, if I'm going to do this for real, I'm going to go back to school. So I went back to the master's program at Berklee College of Music to get my degree in music business. And I said, after I graduate, I'm moving straight to LA.
Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Nice. It looks like you really were. I know you mentioned this to me actually earlier when we were having lunch, and you told me that like pretty much anything you do, you like to, do it right, get it done. So it's good that you did your homework, and then obviously like you kind of had a plan,
Yeah, I think you kind of have to, right? Or else it's, growing up, like one of my biggest fears was just like failure.
Yeah.
Like I was always afraid to fail. And I think a way to kind of maybe not foolproof, but, to lessen that risk is by just doing your homework and being prepared.
Yeah, I agree. Preparation is, it definitely kind of builds you up to like have a more clear view of where you're headed and also just be ready for anything that's kind of thrown at you. I always like to just be aware that if I'm prepared for like, it could be the smallest thing, dude, it's even being prepared to do this today. Or anything for that matter, like if you're not prepared, it just kind of throws everything off, and it's so easy to just run back because you just, you came across this like roadblock and it took you by surprise, I guess you can say.
Yeah. If you're not prepared, it's really easy to just give up.
Yeah.
And
off tops.
I'm definitely not one to do that, to like give up or like accept failure or rejection.
Right. So was that just something that you just had early on, like one of your fears, or did something trigger that?
I think I've always kind of been scared of like just failure in general. So, after my father passed away, we went through a really tough time, like me and my mom and stuff. Like, we lost the house that we were living in. And that always kind of like stood with me. I was like, I never want that to happen.
Yeah, that was like some trauma there. Obviously there's a lot of people that can relate to just like losing a loved one like that. Especially a mom or a dad. I mean, shoot, I can't even imagine, like it's just something that hits home for a lot of people. So obviously, like, that's just not even the worst part of it, though. It's just the aftermath. Obviously, like, you know, you were starting to get into trouble from what you were saying, or just being a little reckless. You guys lost the house. I mean, your mom was probably going through it so bad. So a little bit more into that, like, you guys lost the house. So what was going on at that time?
Well, you know, like my father was kind of like the breadwinner of the family. My mother had a job, but you know, it wasn't like really like paying the bills. So it was like a whole life change, man. Like everything changed after that. Like, you know, there was no more Christmas gifts or like anything like that after, you know. But, you know, I give my mother props. Like she did the absolute best that she could.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, she kept a roof over our head and everything else. Like, you know, she really stepped up.
Stepped up to the plate, yeah. And what about you as, like, when did it click for you? Like, shit, I got to start making moves. Was it quickly, like, obviously from 14 to 18 was like a little gap. So did you get into any trouble, like, while you were being reckless?
Yeah.
Like, just like violence or like what?
Yeah, I got into a lot of fights when I was a kid. Again, I think I was just like such an angry kid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
you would just lash out on people?
Yeah, just lash out. Like any little thing would like set me off when I was younger. And it was really weird because I was always great in school. But I like refused to do homework. I'm like, well, I'm not doing homework. I'll make it up because I'll get like 100 on whatever test you give me.
I'm gonna pay somebody and then they'll just do it for me.
Yeah. Well, I should have done that. But you know, I was getting into fights in school and stuff, and it's funny because looking back, it was like over like the smallest thing.
Oh yeah,
like,
it always is.
You know, oh, that guy was talking shit. Like, you know what I mean?
And you don't even say anything; you just go punch him.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, obviously, the older you get, the more you realize like that's just you don't behave that way.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, when I was like 18 is when everything like really clicked. Like, you know, again, like you when you're young and you lose a parent, like it's really tough to process. You don't really know how to process that because you're not prepared for it.
Exactly.
So I think, you know, at 18, it started to click, like, even like with my mother, because like I would, you know, I moved out on my own at 17. I had my own place.
Okay.
Like, but even then, like at the time, I didn't even think like, oh, damn, like my mom's going through it too.
Yeah.
Like, she just lost her partner.
Yeah, you're just young and we're like, I'm trying to do my own thing because you were already out in the streets, right? You already wanted that freedom.
Yeah. And I wasn't going to, you know, stay at home with like a curfew or anything like that. Like I was trying to go out and, you know, hit these clubs.
Yeah, literally you were promoting and stuff. So it's funny how you started off as that, then it got into management, and then obviously through that was the music thing. So just fast forwarding to that, you finished school, you head to LA, and like what was how did that feel for you at the time?
You know, it was a crazy experience, right? Because I moved to LA with all the money that I had saved. And, you know, in between that time, too, I started running venues in Boston. I was running a handful of venues at once. But I really didn't like doing that. And I ended up getting fired from that job. So that's really what catapulted me to, like, go back to school and kind of just, like, you know, do what I want to do for life.
Yeah.
But when I moved, like, it was crazy. Like the music industry in Boston is almost like non-existent.
Oh yeah.
Which is wild because Berklee College of Music is there, which is like the Harvard of music schools,
really?
Right? But there's really no scene. Like there's no like real record labels that are out of there or anything like that. There's no like major artists that come from Boston, or that like really, you know, spent their lives in Boston.
Right.
So moving here was like a total life changer because here the music scene is very much alive and well.
I mean, it's a scene for just a lot of things, you know. Like there's so much, there's just so much opportunity in terms of networking, which is kind of like what I want to get into because I'm sure you met like so many great people just being here, right? Like shit just happens for you. Yeah,
it's crazy. So all of my clients and even like my business partners have all come through like word of mouth, through like an introduction, through like a partner or another client or something like that.
Nice. That's the best.
Oh, it is the best. Like when you don't have to like advertise to get like your, you know, your clients that you work with on a daily basis. It's great. Yeah, that's literally like just the power of, you know, your word and the relationships you have with these people. It's so important, guys, just because a lot of the times, like, for example, if I recommend somebody to you, you already know my word holds weight. So you know that you're already going to trust it automatically. And then also, like, you know, that's how we met too. So shout out to Elise, is actually my my twin with the same initials and everything. So he's a barber also. So I think I do have like a YouTube video of a haircut he did on my channel, but that's how I met Danny. He recommended him as a client, and then we just hit it off, and you know, we're continuing to build
this is just literally past a haircut. And that's why like the haircuts really for me are a gateway to like more and bigger things. So it's like, you know, we're doing a podcast now. It took a while. But then now we're doing other stuff today. So just kind of tell me a little bit about that. Like when this shit still like, when this shit really start taking off for you in the music side, as far as like building these relationships, the network, like, you know, like a breakthrough moment for you?
Yeah, I'd say back in like 2018 is when things like really kind of started taking off. And again, it was like such a strange period in my life because I had so many great things happening. And then, you know, I got a call that my mom was sick.
Oh, shit.
And I ended up losing my mom.
Sheesh.
So it was weird because I was at like the highest point of my life, and then it was also like the lowest point of my life.
Wow.
At the same time.
And how can you even be happy for all the happy shit, right? Like it's very hard to carry that.
It was really
with
hard.
You.
Like all the wins just kind of were like short lived.
Yeah.
And then you were just trying to like process through everything. But, you know, the closure that I got with my mom, I got to spend every minute for 6 weeks with my mom.
Okay, so you went back.
I did. I went back home. Shout out to my business partners too. They were like, you know, you're going back home.
Yeah.
Like this is it.
There's no way that you're going to be able to probably even be like super efficient with work, knowing that that's in the back of your mind so far too, you know?
Yeah, it was tough. Well, being across the country was like the hardest part. You know? I always took good care of my mom, like especially as I got older. Like I bought her a Lincoln Navigator because she always wanted one. Like,
you told me that story, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell that story actually real quick.
Yeah, so her car was messed up. She had the same car. It was a Nissan Pathfinder. And she had the same car like since I was like a kid.
Yeah.
And her car was always breaking down, and she was like always getting it fixed. So it broke down again. So I told her, I said, all right, I'm going to come down there. I'm like, we'll bring it to my buddy's shop, and, you know, we'll get it fixed, and everything will be fine. But instead, I went and bought her a car. She always wanted a Lincoln Navigator.
That was like probably the dream with all the kids, right?
Yeah, that was her dream. Like she never had like a luxury car.
Yeah.
So she was like, you know, one day I'll have that. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to buy her one. So I drove it down. This is at like 10 o'clock at night because I had gotten out of work, and I was like running around, like trying to pick up the car, get it registered, like do all these things. I brought it down to her, and I told her, I was like, all right, let's go bring your car. So I parked it in the back with my buddy James and my brother Dave, and we put like a big bow on it.
Oh, wow, nice.
So when we were walking to the back, she was just like you know,
yeah,
like,
I mean, what do you say?
Car? Yeah. So that was
so cool, man.
That's probably like my favorite moment of life. Just like, you know.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that's always gonna stick with you, and just like the happiness you gave her and stuff. And it's crazy. You don't realize, like, for us, materialistic things like that, it's like, yeah, it's a win, but at the same time, you don't realize that for, you know, the generation before us, it was something that maybe felt so far to reach, you know what I mean? So it was so cool that you're able to do that. And I guess that ties into like the closure part of it too, right? That you were able to do that for her.
Yeah, you know, that was like a year before she passed, or a year and a half before she passed. But, you know, like even leading up to her passing, my father I never got closure with because he lived in a cancer institute for a long time.
Okay.
He didn't want me to see him like that, right? So my mom, it was just like, you know, I got to spend every minute with her up until when she passed. And, you know, we had some amazing conversations.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. I mean, is that something you recommend for anybody kind of going through anything like that? Just try to like be there as much as you can.
Yeah. What I learned from that experience is that, you know, talking to my mom when she was on her way out, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that I learned is relationships are really kind of the most important thing in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're the source of all your best memories and the source of all your worst memories.
Yeah.
Right. But one thing that my mother said to me before she passed that I'll never forget is, you know, she said, I wish I spent more time with everybody. So for me, it's like, you know, having a huge house is cool. Having a great car is cool. But when you're on your deathbed, that's not what you're thinking about.
Oh, yeah,
you know
for sure. Yeah.
You're thinking about, you know, I wish I was spending more time with the people that I love.
Yeah, and you can't even buy that back, man. That's like literally the one thing that people, you know, I think I guess you can say like, you know, you feel the need to kind of like reach out to anybody you want a closure with or just in general. And it's a trip because it seems like even when my grandmother passed away on my dad's side, man, I kid you not, she was literally like maybe on her last days, but the doctors was like, you know what, she's like literally on almost nothing now, but she wanted to make sure that everybody was on the phone. And then like once everybody talked to her, she literally passed away, man. So, you know, it's a crazy moment, but I mean, those are critical things, you know?
Yeah, so I think I definitely recommend trying to get as much closure as
For sure.
possible. Just keeping that line of communication open is really important.
Yeah, yeah. And even, I mean, even before that, you know, obviously just, you know, just communicating in general, like even before those situations happen. I mean, unfortunately, like people sometimes wait until then, or, you know, they're over here like mad over the stupidest things. It's just like really not worth it, you know?
Yeah, at the end of the day, like, you know, it's like you said, you can't buy that stuff back.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so you got to cherish those relationships and just don't take anything for granted.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. So that's when she got sick, and of course, like, you know, she passed away. But you know, obviously she's in a better place now. And at that time, like, you know, did you struggle for a few years, kind of getting over that too? Even though things were going good.
Yeah, I think the fact that I had a lot of good things happening in my life, and I was just really, in terms of like the people I was surrounded by, I was just surrounded by people who really cared, people who actually really gave a shit, you know?
Yeah.
Like, dude, like one of my business partners came, he flew in from New York, and he wanted to meet my mom like before she passed.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, like that's that kind of stuff, like I would never even imagine that, right?
Yeah.
So
that's very sacred, you know, especially like that's already like your family. You know?
yeah. So, you know, stuff like that really made me feel comfortable kind of moving on. And I think the fact that I had so much going on kind of like takes your mind off it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it still hurts. It's still like a traumatic thing to go through. But at the same time, I think being occupied and being able to kind of push through, and that's what my mother would have wanted too. Like my mother was a fighter. Like she's, you know.
That's what I was going to tell you. Like, I'm sure that's what she would have wanted for you. And that's also like really the fuel to, you know, continue to like progress and stuff. And I think sometimes people let those things kind of knock them down. And obviously life goes on, you know, you got to continue to like live your purpose and honestly make them proud because they're still watching, you know?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, you kind of live every day and you try to make, you know, when you're making decisions, you try to keep, you know, your parents in mind if you lost your parents or whoever it is, you know, your loved one. And, you know, you try to live life the way that they would want you to be to make them proud.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's good that you were able to still, you know, obviously like keep it going because I know sometimes people let a lot of these like traumatic moments, you know, kind of stop them or, you know, they go into obviously like depression and a bunch of other stuff. Those are things that, you know, even though before we talk about all the other stuff in terms of business, there's a lot of that personal life shit that really, you know, battles people.
Yeah,
so I
that
mean,
affects your business.
Yeah, yeah. And then it affects the business. It's just literally a domino effect. So, you know, I guess you can say you already touched on that, but just like maybe for anybody that's kind of like in a situation, man, what are some of the important things to keep in mind, like if they're going through something like that?
I think, and it's easier said than done, but I think keeping your business and personal lives completely separate in terms of how you approach things. You know, how I approach things in business is not necessarily how I approach things in my personal life.
Right.
But, you know, I think just because you're going through something in your personal life, you know, if you're an entrepreneur and you have people who rely on you to be on your A game every day and, you know, that's how they're going to eat, you know, you have to kind of keep in mind, like, well, I still got to be sharp for work. I still have to, like,
show up.
Yeah, I still got to show up. I got to try to block out the noise to the best of my ability. And it's difficult, right? But, you know, you got to really do the best you can because if you fall into that, like, mindset of, like, you know, I'm a victim or, you know, I'm getting beaten down, I always tell people where you are in life is an exact duplication of your consciousness, right?
Right.
So like if you're in your mind just going like, oh, I suck, like I can't do anything right, I don't have anything, like, you know, that's going to be what you put out.
Yeah, that's literally what you believe that you are, you know? Like you will be who you think you are, you know, in your mind. Like if you suck, that's what you're going to come off as and that's what you're going to feel like, you know what I mean? So that's super important, man. The conscious, the mind, really before anything, it's like really separate from everything else, you know? So
it really is.
That's why, you know, the awareness of that is important, really like feeding yourself positive shit and obviously being around good people. Like you were mentioning, you know, like having the right people in your circle and people to kind of like lift you up in those moments is super important, man. So, you know, I feel like, I mean, we're the same in a sense where like, I'm sure you could just read when people are just, you know, they're in a situation, but you know why.
Yeah.
They just, I mean, I don't know, they ignore to see it or what, but you know, that shit's just like a big reason of why a lot of people can't get out of certain things.
Especially managing artists.
Yeah.
Like, you know, my artists, I manage like all aspects of their life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Their daily schedules, you know, everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, managing people is really hard.
No, yeah, literally that was like my next thing that I was gonna tell you. Like just managing people in general is tough because I relate to it. I do have obviously my barbershop is my storefront business, and I have people under me. They're independent people, just like your artists. They're gonna continue to do your thing, but obviously there's something. You're almost like the backbone to everything, and so many different personalities, different expectations, meeting those needs. Them respecting whatever it is that's under your contract. I'm sure there's obviously obligations,
Sure.
as much as they have freedom. So just in general, managing people is really not the easiest, just because, like you say, you do got to show up 100% regardless on your end, So
Yep.
like, what's your experience been like with that, or maybe some of the troubles that you've had with some people, and maybe some words of advice for anybody like in wearing the big shoes?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with so many artists over the years, and knock on wood, like 98% of them have been like a blessing to me as well. You know what I mean? And it's managing them hasn't been the most challenging thing in life. But then I've also worked with artists where managing them was probably the most challenging thing in life. And it's easy. You have, I mean, as a creator in general, it's very easy to kind of like get knocked off your horse, right? Like,
Yeah.
because, especially music. Music is really subjective, and the internet is an extremely mean place. You know what I mean? So like,
Definitely, we know that.
yeah, exactly. Like, you're an influencer, you're in that community and stuff. Like, you have a big following. Like, sometimes, like a musician, like I've seen an artist like post a song that the vast majority of people will be like, this song slaps. This is such a great song. And then you get, like a couple of assholes online that'll just be like, this sucks. Please retire. Never make music again. Like, I've seen
some harsh comments.
Oh my God, it gets worse too. Like, it's, they say really mean things. So it's like, I get it. Like, as a musician, I could see where that would get you knocked off your horse, and just kind of, I've seen a lot of artists struggle to get back on.
And that's where the mental side kind of strikes,
Yeah,
where it's like,
absolutely.
shit, it depends how mentally strong they are and how they handle that situation.
And then I've seen artists struggle with addiction, and try to beat that.
With the lifestyle that they live kind of deal.
Yeah, and it's tough. Like, they can't, to this day, I've worked with, a couple of artists in particular who had such a high point in their career, but, the second they go out on the road, it's like, they get addicted to drugs, or they start doing drugs again.
That's wild. Yeah, people don't really understand how that music industry works. Like, I've had the pleasure to, obviously I met you, and then I've been working with a few other people, like, in terms of haircuts, but I see that lifestyle and I'm just like, bro, it's, of course it looks great and there's a lot of like great things about it, but there's also a lot of bad,
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, like, what I notice from people who do manage artists is just them kind of being on their ass about shit like that,
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's crazy for you to say that, they go out and then they get addicted to certain things, just being on the road for a month or two, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was a band that I was working with where the lead singer, had a really bad addiction problem. And one of the biggest tours we were ever on, we ended up getting kicked off because he just couldn't get his shit together.
Shit.
And, the band ended up breaking up. Everybody went their separate ways.
Of course.
And it's like, the band was so extremely talented.
Yeah.
And it's like, they had such a bright future, but, he just couldn't get out of it. But it's weird, like, when you're in a spot of success as a musician, there's a lot of enablers and people that pop up and, offer you like those evil things. And,
Everybody's calling you at that point, right?
Yeah, of course. And it's tough, like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Like, when you're partying and stuff, like, you think that's the lifestyle, like, this is what it is. But, it's a very tough place. And then when you see people like, Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots died of an overdose on his tour bus, and stuff like that always kind of hits hard, because it's like, that's the story of so many emerging artists too.
Yeah. Then you wonder why they kind of fall off, right? Or one hit wonders or whatever the case, you don't hear about them for a few years. They were like in rehab or some shit. So that makes sense, man. It's a trip. It was kind of cool to just like get the people a little insight on that, because, of course, like, music is big for anybody, like, it's
Sure.
part of their daily life. So a lot of the times maybe they do bash certain artists, like, man, you haven't released the album and you haven't done this, but they don't understand all this other shit that, obviously you as a manager know that they go through.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really tough lifestyle to maintain. Statistically speaking, the music industry is the hardest industry to make a career in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, that's one thing, like just breaking through. Like Spotify has like 60,000 songs per day that are uploaded to it. So
Wow.
like, when you're just one of those songs, like trying to break through the noise and everything else is hard.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when you do get success, you have all these obstacles that you got to try to overcome too.
Yeah. I was watching, I want to say it was All Eyes on Me, the Tupac movie. And then also, which one was it? I was going to say Boys in the Hood. It's the other one. It's,
Great movie.
Straight Outta Compton. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So in the movie, obviously, if you've watched them, I'm guessing you have. Yep. You know how like they're trying to sign these deals, but then they're getting percentages cut and they're not getting the money. So let's talk a little bit about that, because obviously these people think these guys make like millions of dollars, but there's so many people that have to get paid in between, right?
Oh yeah.
And like they're almost like the last ones to really get anything, no?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the deal that you sign,
right?
So like,
and people don't really know what they're signing to, right?
Well, that's the big problem, and a lot of artists just kind of get blinded by like, a thing that major labels do is they'll buy you like, a real fancy watch or a nice car, or, you know what I mean? And then they'll give you millions of dollars as an advance. But what you don't realize is like, well, at the end of the day, I got to pay, for all my own marketing. I got to pay, my publicist. I got to pay my manager, my booking agent, my business manager, my engineer, my producers, like all these people. So that all comes out of that advance. So it's like when you're, $1 million advance really comes out to being like a $50,000 advance after all is said and done.
Dang.
So it's like, but independent labels like mine, even though we're a subsidiary of a major label, Sony Music, we offer a lot more artist-friendly deals, so that artists can make a living.
Yeah, exactly. I mean? So you give them a bunch of other resources for them to also kind of like create their own brand within the brand, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, great. So let's just get into that, because that's obviously what you did for me today. You helped me just kind of set up some stuff. I want to start doing a few more like ads and just make sure that the connection, when a customer is online or whatever, they see an ad or they click it and everything's legit. So just kind of talk about what you do for artists, other than obviously their music.
Yeah, so, some of our artists have been established for a long time, and they need a lot less development in terms of marketing, promotion, branding, stuff like that. But for the artists who are emerging, we really have to kind of do everything from scratch. We've worked with some artists who had no music on Spotify, right?
Wow.
And breaking out an artist who has, no live performances under their belt, no music out, like it's a really hard thing to build a fan base.
You're literally going from the bottom up. So
one reason why I like ads so much is because, you know exactly who you're targeting. So if you have a song that kind of sounds like, take for instance, we have one artist, Justin Clancy, and his sound is pretty similar to like 21 Pilots and like Mac Miller, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're setting up ads for him and we're targeting those fans, and they're engaging and reacting and they're following after seeing the ads and stuff, like that's how we're building a fan base. But then it's on the artist to maintain that connection with those fans.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Engagement, yeah.
Yeah, like you have to keep that, that personal connection. You have to make them feel like they're invested in your career.
Yeah.
So it's really,
almost like they have to build a community once they're there, right?
Yeah, like we can give you the ears, but you have to make them want to keep coming back and listening. So it's really, it's a partnership when we sign a deal with an artist, because, we're taking a risk. We're giving them money, you know what I mean? And we're doing all their marketing, and, we have a whole team of people busting their ass for them. Yeah. But it's really a partnership because the artist has a lot of work to do. And that's one thing too, like a lot of people think like, oh, if I just get signed to a label, then everything's going to be great. And it's like, 98% of artists that are signed to major labels never recoup their deals and they get off.
Dang.
But I mean, think about how many artists right, that are like household names. There's, in the grand scheme of like millions and millions and millions of artists, it's really not a lot, right? Like, so, a lot of people think that, if I just sign like this deal with this major label or whatever, my life's going to change. It's going to be all good. But
it's going to change for sure.
Oh, it'll change. That's for sure. But I always tell people, like, if you think it's hard to get a deal, try having a deal, not recouping, and then try getting a deal after that.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
Yeah, that's the harder part. And it's all about, like, making smart decisions in the beginning, having the right people in your corner, I'm guessing.
Definitely.
But, a little bit about just the ads, just because people might be a little confused with that. So, you guys are being on Instagram or whatever, Facebook, it doesn't matter, right? you talk about these things, you're interested in these things. So like then all of a sudden you see a sponsored ad with some shit. So that's obviously what we're talking about. And, in terms of like being on my end, I do want like my hair product line to be like that. I do want my clothing line to be like that as well. And it's just being prepared, most importantly, because I am dropping some new stuff soon. So, just kind of setting these things up and having the right people, like the networking, of course, has helped me because it's tedious as fuck. Like I will say, like, you saw how my accounts were. They were just kind of all over the place. I almost thought he wasn't going to end up like really being able to finish them, especially the first one. But thankfully he did. So just kind of explain like the benefits of somebody maybe that's starting their own brand and how these ads could benefit them. Just online business period. Like, because I know some of the artists that you've or people that you've been working with, you start these ad accounts and honestly they don't have followers. They don't really have like engagement. But then that's starting to grow, organically. So get a little bit more in depth with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as far as the brand goes, ads are super important, right? Because you can only grow so much on word of mouth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you're advertising and your brand is everywhere, people are seeing it more and it becomes, take Fashion Nova, for instance, right? Like if you look at what Fashion Nova's done in the last like 4 or 5 years, it's amazing.
Didn't the guy buy like the most expensive house in LA?
Most expensive house in LA. And, I think it was something crazy too.
Oh,
like
yeah, it was like
over 100 million or something.
Easily, yeah. I forgot how much it was, but it was up there.
When you look at what that brand's done, they're everywhere, right? They're on like every influencer page has someone talking about, oh, thanks to Fashion Nova.
Yeah, they've all
for
worked
giving me
with
the
them.
drip, like, whatever. Every influencer is wearing them. So, it's important. And I think the same goes into advertising for anything, whether it's music, branding, any type of retail, whatever. The plan is to be ubiquitous, right? You want to be everywhere. Everywhere that somebody could potentially discover a brand or discover an artist or discover, anything, an item, a product, you want to be there.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, today we were setting up your shop on Facebook and Instagram. Maybe, 2% of your sales per year end up coming from there. But it's important to just be there because there may be somebody. There may be somebody there who wants to drop a couple G's on,
Clothes
Facebook or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's important to be everywhere. And as far as the ads go, if you're advertising a brand, right? Like let's say there's brands or stores that are synonymous with your brand, right? Active Faith. Like targeting people that we know for a fact would be into your brand, obviously that's going to equate to sales and grow the business and everything else.
Yeah, because like, of course, like if you post just with your general following or whatever, maybe like 10% of those are actually people that really understand like what your brand is about or that actually are looking for something like that. So what the ads are doing is you're kind of like shrinking those people, but just finding more that are alike, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then, one thing why I like Facebook and Instagram is they have the pixel. And the pixel's really cool because it tracks everybody that interacts with your accounts and with your website. So then, if somebody adds something to a cart, but then they get cold feet and they're like, I'm not going to purchase this. It is a cool product though. Down the line, if you start running ads to that person, that's why, like, if you ever Google, like, I don't know, Nikes, there's a good chance that next time you go on Facebook or something, you're going to start seeing ads for Nike, right?
Yeah, so that's how that works. I think people are always confused, like, my phone's listening to me. It's like, no, but you probably have been, like, looking this up somehow, right?
Yeah, if you Googled Nike or, like, you clicked on their website or something or some way you were connected to Nike somehow on the internet, then, it's not uncommon to start seeing those ads pop up. But, that's important for a brand because,
absolutely.
If someone got cold feet, who's to say that next time they see that ad or that product, they're going to be like, damn, I need this thing.
Yeah.
Like, what
yeah.
I mean?
It might be just that day where they really were like ready to buy it, And a lot of the times too, people are getting the traffic in their store, but the conversion rate isn't that great. And obviously it's important to go back onto your account and check those analytics and kind of see how you can be more efficient because honestly, people's attention span with any brand period, like you go on the site, you scroll, sometimes you buy, sometimes you don't. Like it's all about the conversion at the end of the day, the results, executing those sales. So I do think that is going to be a big help. And that's why I'm excited, and grateful for you to like help me. And I'm excited to just see what we do with it because we haven't even ran an ad yet. I'm just excited that it's up there already.
Well, we had some work to do before.
We do. But, just like anything, guys, like, you have to be prepared, and then also, making sure that you're really intentional with like what you're trying to do. So I'm just excited to really kind of like kickstart. I really feel like I started all over again, but I think with anything you do, you kind of have to like kind of refresh things and then start, so it's good that you talked a little bit about that. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in kind of understanding that, and also if they have a business, like, looking for that kind of help. I know you were saying that eventually you might start offering that, right?
Yeah, next week.
Oh shit.
Next
Okay,
week,
so there you go. So just kind of I am gonna obviously tag all your information and stuff. So just kind of briefly explain for somebody that will be interested in that service, like what you guys are gonna offer.
Yeah, so my company Hitscope, we're starting. We're gonna finally offer our services to the public in terms of marketing, and that. As far as ads go, I'm always available for brands or whatever to hire my team to run ads or anything. But it's really, Hitscope's marketing website is really going to be geared towards musicians and music related services. But as far as ads and stuff, I mean, I run ads for a lot of businesses. I set them up with their ads accounts. Some of them like it where I just set it up for them and then they can run it from there. And then some of them, I literally have to do everything every day for them. But yeah, we are going to start offering that. Our website is going to launch hopefully next week. We're just waiting for that Shopify page to be done. But yeah, I'm excited about that because for the last 5 years or so, I've had so many artists who have asked me like, hey, like, can I hire you for marketing and stuff? And I'm like, I really only do it for our label. Like, I have like my work cut out for me. But now that I have a really solid team that alleviates a lot of the stuff that I have to do every day. Like I'm available to offer this to
nice. And that's the goal, right? To create the freedom. We just like anything, man. Time is like literally the most essential thing in our lives. Like we're super busy, so we're super appreciative when we're able to kind of like alleviate some of that with having the right people on board. So, like I said, I'm gonna tag. You obviously have some kind of info to find that, right? Like Instagram or whatever.
Yeah, Instagram and our website, www.hitscope.com.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm gonna tag everything down below, and then hopefully you guys are able to like kind of pick up on that if you guys are interested in it. So, I mean, other than that, what's next for you? Of course, like you're managing artists. You got this new thing going on. Like, what are some of the, some of the bigger goals in the next, months or years?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Like we're expanding Hitscope at like kind of like a rapid pace. We're almost going like too fast. But that's
a good thing.
Yeah, it's good when you have all the resources to grow and scale. And the way that me and my business partners look at things is like, why wait, right?
Yeah.
So we just launched, and I'm so happy that we did this deal right before this podcast. But yesterday we actually signed a deal, a joint venture with Big Noise Music Group, who's a very successful publishing company. And we're launching a joint venture with them to offer that for our artists and potential artists as well.
Yeah, so they have like their own platform with artists too and stuff.
Yeah, so they do like sync placements, so getting songs in like movies, TV shows, video games, and stuff like that. Nice. And we've had a lot of success with that on our own.
Okay.
So it kind of made sense. This deal's been like 6-7 months in the works, but it made sense.
Congrats.
Thank you, man. Like, why not partner with the most successful company that's doing this? What I mean? And
that's cool.
When great minds think alike and come together, it's great things happen.
Yeah, great things happen. And on top of that too, like what you're doing now, it ties into that. So it's good that you're prepared with this company because now it's going to be able to be offered. And the hardest part is obviously doing the work to get it started. There's a few things I want to do myself, and it's like most of the time I'm like, all I got to do is just put in these hours and hours and hours of work, and then after that is just promoting it and having it ready. So when people do ask, like, hey man, can you help me with some ads? Sure, I got this company here. Or with me, like, yo, like, I know you don't cut no more, but I want to see what you could teach me. I'm like, hey, buy my course or whatever it is, So that's really cool. That's the cool thing about networking, and also just like, I think obviously word of mouth, and on top of that too, just being able to like execute those deals, because I mean, they wouldn't just sign you just because, like obviously there's more to it than that. It's your character, what you're about, the history and stuff. So,
and every deal takes like, it's always like a ton of meetings, and I always say, I never want to work with someone that doesn't want to work with me.
Yeah.
Right. So it takes a lot of like warming up to each other and just making sure like this is the perfect fit. Right.
Yeah.
And, sometimes that takes like, you got to talk to 10 other companies and see like, weigh your options. And then like, for us, that's what we did. And then, we went back to Big Noise, and shout out to Jess from Big Noise. Like, the energy was just like such a perfect fit.
Yeah.
I mean, we were like, this just makes total sense.
Yeah. Dope, man. Congrats. Excited to see like, you know, obviously you continue to grow and then your company as well. So, you know, hopefully everybody really picked up on some stuff. Definitely a different kind of episode, but I think you guys touched a little bit of, you know, different kind of topics today, like aside from the business side and the marketing and just you guys seeing like what really goes into like, you know, brand development. And also like if you guys are an up and coming artist, like maybe you guys have really learned a lot like on his side of things, because, you know, a lot of people are very naive to that, especially young artists. So on top of that too, you know, all the backstories, appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing that, because, you know, it's stuff that people can relate to. And that's what I love about having people on the podcast and being an open book, because people really get to learn a different side of you and then also pick up on some gems. So definitely, you know, thank you again for your time.
Of course, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So you do actually have to sign the Wall of Fame over there. So right here, what I have is your signature and then something you live by. So we'll pretty much just wrap it up with that. So really think about it. So you took a sip of the water.
Yeah. Here we go.
What'd you put on there?
Never lose your ground.
I like that a lot. You know, it's crazy. I have a lot of good ones on there, honestly. Like eventually I'm gonna frame this, but there's like so many powerful messages and all of them are short and sweet, but they really like strike a nerve, you know?
Yeah.
So I like that. That's something you live by, right?
That's it. That's it.
I think we all should, man. So we'll end it with that. Again, Danny, thank you for your time. Good luck with everything. It was a pleasure having you on board. And if you guys made it through to this entire episode, at this point, I'm going to just have like awards for people, because like rewards, because, you know, for people to stick through a podcast, of course, like they kind of downplay the fact of, you know, maybe they're going to be bored or some shit. But man, I mean, shit, I want to listen to this all over again, you know?
Right?
Yeah, it was good, man. So let us know your feedback. Like I said, I'm going to tag all your information. Any last words to anybody? This is your time.
That's it, man. Thanks for having me. I hope somebody, you know, can relate to something that we talked about today.
Absolutely, yeah. It'll be cool to see like once they reach out too for whatever help they need, man. So that's what we have on here. That's what the Need Podcast is about, you know, to obviously share some good shit and then of course like help out, you know, the people that are watching, man. So much love. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.